When Eleanor passed away on April 10, 2024, the world lost its color. After 45 years of marriage, I thought I understood the rhythm of life: morning coffee, her humming in the garden, the faint sound of her slippers against the hardwood floors. But when she was gone, silence became my constant companion. The walls of our Seattle home seemed to close in, each room echoing with memories too tender to face. I spent hours sitting by her favorite chair near the bay window, watching the sunlight trace patterns across the floor. That was where she used to read, where she'd smile at me over the rim of her teacup, the faded green one with tiny flowers she loved. That cup sat untouched on the counter, a relic of a life that felt whole not so long ago. Grief does strange things to a man. I was 68, a retired forensic accountant from the FBI, someone who'd spent decades uncovering fraud, deception, and lies. I thought I was immune to manipulation. But losing Eleanor had stripped away all the defenses I'd built over a lifetime. For the first time, I wasn't the one investigating a crime. I was the one vulnerable to it. Michael, my son, flew in from San Diego for the funeral. He'd grown distant over the years, too caught up in business trips and new investments. Still, when I saw him standing there at the church, I felt proud. Beside him stood his wife, Rebecca. She was elegant and confident, the kind of person who always had a phone in one hand and an opinion in the other. She managed finances for high-end clients and seemed to know everything about money, investments, and insurance. At first, I was grateful for her presence. She spoke softly, offering to help around the house. "You can't stay here alone, Edward," she said one morning as I stood washing that green cup. "It's not good for you to be by yourself." Her words sounded kind, even thoughtful. I didn't notice the subtle way she began to linger longer each day, organizing drawers, cleaning files, and finally sorting through Eleanor's study. One afternoon, I found her there, sitting at Eleanor's old desk, surrounded by papers. "I'm just organizing," she explained quickly, smiling. "You've got unopened bills and investment letters everywhere. I can help make sense of them." I hesitated. Eleanor had always managed our finances. She knew every number, every password, every portfolio. I'd trusted her with everything. Now, Rebecca was stepping into that same role, and I was too weary to object. Weeks passed, and Rebecca's visits became part of my daily routine. She'd arrive with grocery bags or a pot of homemade soup, always busy, always helpful. But beneath that charm, something didn't sit right. I'd catch her snapping photos of bank statements and investment reports. When I asked about it, she brushed it off with a laugh. "Just keeping digital copies. You never know when you'll need them." One evening, as she helped me review mail, she pointed to a letter from the insurance company. "This is Eleanor's life policy, right? $300,000. That's something we should protect carefully." The word "we" caught my attention. It was subtle, but meaningful. I started noticing other things too. Her gentle reminders that I seemed forgetful, her offhand comments about my age and health. She'd say things like, "You mentioned that story about Eleanor's garden twice today. Maybe you should see a doctor, Edward." It was manipulation disguised as concern. Then one morning, I found brochures on my kitchen table for assisted living facilities. "Just in case," Rebecca said when I asked about them. "These places are safe. Meals, nurses, companionship. You'd be happier there." That was when I started to feel the walls closing in. She began talking about Michael's supposed financial struggles, debts, bad investments, the usual troubles of middle age. "He doesn't want to worry you," she'd say, "but it's getting serious." When I tried to call Michael, she intercepted the conversation. He's busy with clients, she'd explain. He asked me to handle things here. By July, I came home one afternoon to find a neatly printed document waiting on my dining table, a power of attorney form. Rebecca smiled as she poured coffee. Just a precaution, she said. You know how unpredictable life can be. If anything ever happens, I can take care of things for you. It's what family does. Her words were smooth, rehearsed. I'd heard that tone before, back in my FBI days, when con artists tried to justify their scams. But the emotional fog of grief had dulled my instincts. For a moment, I almost believed her. That night, I sat in Eleanor's study and stared at the pile of documents Rebecca had organized. Her neat handwriting marked every account I owned: the Vanguard Retirement Fund, the Chase Savings, the property valuation, every detail of my finances mapped like a blueprint. It wasn't kindness. It was calculation. The next day, I hired a private investigator, Maria Lopez, a meticulous professional I'd worked with years ago. Within days, she called me back. Edward, your instincts were right. Rebecca's been involved in at least 4 similar cases. Older clients, all men, all drained of their assets after she helped them with their finances. None of them pressed charges. They were too embarrassed. The truth settled over me like ice. But what came next shocked even me. Maria dug deeper and found that my son, Michael, wasn't in San Diego at all. He was on vacation in the Cayman Islands, with a young woman named Sophia Reed. Social media told the rest of the story: photos of the two of them on the beach, laughing, her caption calling it her single adventure. Rebecca had been lying not just to me, but to everyone. She'd painted a picture of a struggling husband while he was living freely overseas. The puzzle pieces began to fit. Rebecca had a plan: to fake Michael's death, claim his inheritance, and seize control of my estate under the pretense of protection. The following evening, I received a call from Rebecca. Her voice was tight, urgent. Edward, it's bad. Michael's missing. There was an accident, a boating crash in San Diego. They are saying he didn't make it. My heart clenched, but I stayed calm. Oh no, I whispered. What do we do? She exhaled dramatically. I'll handle everything. I'll contact the authorities and arrange for cremation. But we have to move fast. His debts need to be managed before they come after us. We'll need to protect your assets. You'll thank me later. Later that night, she emailed me a forged death certificate and details for a supposed funeral fund. That was when I knew her act was complete. Over the next few days, she played her role with haunting precision. She arrived in black, tearful, telling neighbors that Michael had died in a boating accident. She even created an online fundraiser for his funeral expenses, collecting thousands in donations from kind-hearted friends and church members. I watched quietly, documenting everything: the calls, the transactions, the fake obituaries she submitted to the local paper. When she finally sat across from me at the kitchen table, clutching my hand, she said, "You're all I have left now, Edward. We should sell this house. It's too big for you. I'll help you move into assisted living. You'll be safe there." Safe, that word burned in my chest. Eleanor had always said, true safety isn't about where you live, it's about who you trust. And I had trusted the wrong person, but I wasn't broken. Not yet. I looked into Rebecca's confident, rehearsed smile. I knew what I had to do. I'd spent my life chasing liars, but this time the investigation was personal. I wasn't going to be her next victim. I told her softly, "You've been so kind, Rebecca. Let's plan the move after Michael's memorial. I need to honor him properly first. She nodded, believing the performance. What she didn't know was that Detective Ramirez and Maria were already preparing the final act. A plan that would expose Rebecca, before the very community she had deceived. As I stood that night in the quiet of my home, I looked at Eleanor's photo on the mantel. I won't let her take what we built, I whispered. Not you, not your memory. For the first time in months, I felt something other than grief. I felt purpose. The morning of the court hearing arrived like a storm disguised as sunlight. Harlow's County Courthouse stood proud and solemn, its brick walls catching the early rays of dawn as if bracing for what was to come. I parked the car, took a deep breath, and glanced at my mother beside me. She looked smaller than ever, her frail hands clutching a folded tissue, but her eyes, those same eyes that once looked down at me with fear, now held a quiet strength. Are you ready, Mom? I asked softly. She nodded. I've been ready for years, Ethan. I just didn't know how to say it. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Familiar faces from town sat in the benches, whispering stories they thought they knew. The sight made my stomach tighten. In small towns, gossip spreads faster than truth. But today wasn't about them. It was about my mother, about giving her the voice she'd been denied for so long. Marcus Hale, our attorney, greeted us at the table with a calm smile. We have everything we need. Just stay composed. He turned to my mother. You're the truth in this room, Elena. Don't let him take that from you again. When Victor entered, the air changed. He walked in like he still owned the world, dressed sharply, but with a hollow arrogance that didn't fit him anymore. His eyes met mine briefly, cold and hard, before sliding to my mother. You really want to do this? He muttered loud enough for us to hear. After everything? My mother didn't reply. She simply straightened her back, lifted her chin, and faced forward. That quiet defiance was louder than any shout. The hearing began. Marcus presented our evidence, photos of injuries, the medical reports Dr. Hayes had prepared, and statements from neighbors who had heard years of shouting and crashes through thin walls. Every detail felt like reopening an old wound, but each one brought light into the darkness my father had built around us. Victor's lawyer, Derek Voss, was as slippery as they came. He painted my mother as emotionally unstable, accused me of using police influence to fabricate evidence. At one point, he even implied my mother's injuries were self-inflicted for attention. The words made my blood boil. I gripped the table so tightly my knuckles turned white. But Marcus's calm voice anchored me. We don't argue with shadows, he whispered. Then came the moment that broke and rebuilt me all at once, my mother's testimony. She stood, walked slowly to the stand, and swore the oath with trembling fingers. For a moment, she was silent. Then she began to speak. She didn't cry. Her voice was steady, fragile at first, then gaining strength with each sentence. She talked about the early days of their marriage, the charm that masked control, the slow erosion of her confidence. She spoke of nights when silence was safer than truth, mornings when she pretended everything was fine for my sake. She looked at Victor and said, "You taught me to fear, but my son taught me to be brave." Even the judge leaned forward. You could feel the weight of every word. When Victor took the stand, his mask slipped. His voice rose, his temper flared, and the calm courtroom became a battlefield of old wounds. "She's lying," he shouted. She always needed someone to blame. But his anger only confirmed everything my mother had said. The truth was undeniable now, written in his every movement. By the time the judge announced the verdict, voiding the coercive contracts, granting my mother half the assets, and issuing a restraining order, the courtroom was silent. My father's face twisted in disbelief. "This is injustice," he roared, slamming his hand on the table. Officers moved in quickly, guiding him out as his curses echoed behind him. Outside, sunlight poured over the courthouse steps. My mother took a long breath, her shoulders trembling with release. "It's over," she whispered. I smiled through the sting of tears. "No, Mom. It's just beginning." For the first time in decades, she was free. The weeks that followed were like learning to breathe again. My mother moved in with us permanently, settling into the rhythm of our family life on Willow Street. Sophia treated her like her own mother, and Lily adored her company. I often came home to find them in the garden, Lily chasing butterflies while my mother watered the flowers, her laughter light and new. Healing came slowly, but it came. There were mornings when I'd see her staring at the horizon, lost in thought. I never interrupted those moments. I knew she was making peace with the years she'd lost. Meanwhile, news about my father spread through Harlow. His reputation crumbled. Brooke, the woman he had left my mother for, disappeared from town not long after. Rumor had it she'd run off with another man, leaving Victor alone in the decaying house that had once been our home. I told myself I didn't care, but late at night, I found myself wondering how a man could destroy everything and still look at himself in the mirror. Months passed. I poured myself into my work, finding new meaning in every case that crossed my desk. Whenever I helped someone escape a situation that reminded me of my mother's, it felt personal. Justice had become more than my job, it was my redemption. Then, one evening, as summer faded into autumn, I got a call that shattered the fragile calm. There had been an incident at a local apartment complex, a woman found lifeless, signs of violence, and a witness who had seen Victor nearby. My stomach sank. Brooke's name was mentioned, the world seemed to tilt. But trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Rebecca's case moved swiftly. The evidence was airtight. She was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison and ordered to repay over $600,000 in damages. Her professional licenses were revoked, her agency shut down, and her name became synonymous with betrayal. But what mattered most wasn't her punishment, it was the change that followed. Detective Ramirez and I began working together again, unofficially. We started a community program, teaching seniors how to recognize financial manipulation. Banks across Washington adopted new protocols for elderly clients, flagging large transactions and requiring independent verification for power of attorney documents, as the state legislature even passed a new law, named in Eleanor's honor, the Eleanor Thompson Elder Safeguard Act. It required banks and insurance companies to have extra protections for clients over 65, including automatic notifications to family before major withdrawals. I like to think Eleanor would have smiled at that. Michael came home not long after the trial. He looked different, tired, ashamed. "Dad," he said when he first walked through the door, "I'm sorry. I didn't see what she was doing. I was selfish, distant. I thought she was helping you." I studied him for a moment, then hugged him tightly. "We all make mistakes, son," I told him. "What matters is that we learn from them." Sophia, the woman he had met during his trip, came with him. She was quiet, kind, nothing like Rebecca. Over time, I saw in her the sincerity that Eleanor always valued. Michael and Sophia eventually married, and when their first child was born, they named her Eleanor. Life returned to the house. Laughter replaced the silence that had haunted it for months. Every Sunday, my family gathered around the table for dinner, Michael carving the roast, Sophia setting the plates, and little Eleanor babbling in her high chair. The house that once echoed with loss now rang with life. Sometimes, I'd catch myself glancing at the empty chair by the window, the one where Eleanor used to read. I liked to think she was still there, watching over us, smiling at the chaos of it all. 2 years passed. The program Ramirez and I founded expanded nationally. I traveled to community centers, giving talks to seniors, reminding them that vulnerability is not weakness, but a call for awareness. Protect what you've built, I'd say. Because there will always be someone ready to take advantage of your grief. Don't let them. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail with a federal prison stamp. The sender was Rebecca. I didn't open it. I held it for a moment, then dropped it into the fireplace. Some chapters, I decided, didn't deserve rereading. As the flames consumed the envelope, I whispered, "Goodbye, Rebecca." That evening, I sat on the porch watching the sunset. The horizon blazed in gold and crimson, and for a moment, I felt Eleanor beside me again, the warmth of her hand, the sound of her voice reminding me that love, once real, never truly leaves. Grief had once made me a target. But it also taught me strength, the quiet kind that grows from loss, not bitterness. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: predators thrive in silence, and isolation feeds deception. But when you open your eyes, speak up, and trust your instincts, even the darkest deceit can't stand against truth. As I watched my son and his little family in the garden, laughter drifting through the evening air, I realized that the best revenge against betrayal isn't anger. It's rebuilding your life stronger than before. Eleanor used to say, "Kindness without caution is like walking barefoot through thorns." She was right. But she also believed that goodness, when paired with wisdom, could change lives. I've seen that truth unfold. And in my heart, I know this journey, painful as it was, led me back to purpose. Now, when I speak to others, I end with the same words I whispered to my wife's photograph the night before the memorial. Age doesn't make you weak. Grief doesn't make you foolish. But trusting blindly can make you vulnerable. So protect your heart, protect your home, and never mistake manipulation for love. Because the truest measure of strength isn't how much we've lost, it's how fiercely we guard what remains. And as the sun dipped below the Seattle SKYL